The longest race of the year was basically just the longest day of the year. What do you guys think?
Also the longest weekend of the year.
Well, whose
Right?
fault was that?
Was rough.
Oh man.
Actually, I will say I feel unfortunate that was the weekend that we like we had the weekend planned to spend together, which we did. And we had a lot of racing on the itinerary and it just never materialized. Like nothing panned out.
No.
We probably should. Korey had suggested putting on the F1 race. Maybe we should have. It would have been better than nothing.
It wasn't a race, it was a parade. So
well, that's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
I like parades.
well, true. Parades are nice, but
It's the fastest parade you'll ever see, for that matter. But yeah,
that was brutal.
I felt bad.
Since there's so much to get to, why don't we just jump right in tonight?
Oh, Donnie's in a rush.
Donnie is in a rush. He's been in a rush since, I don't know, 2:30 yesterday or this morning when he decided to leave.
1:30. It was 1:30. He took off.
Okay, my bad.
Me trying to fall asleep. Donnie like jumps out of the couch. I'm like, "You're leaving, aren't you?" Yep. He's like, "All right."
He left,
see, but
he left so fast he didn't say goodbye to me and he left his clothes on the floor.
well, to be fair, you were snoring by that point, but
oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Just for the listeners at home, I did have clothes I was wearing. I didn't drive home naked. And
well, I wasn't awake.
At least I hope I didn't.
It makes sense the cops didn't pull you over then.
Right? Check the security cams at the gas station, I guess.
Just this white streak of flesh poking it across the parking lot.
all right then.
Did everyone check and see if that beef jerky was dead when we got it?
What?
That's what I pictured Donnie would have looked like.
Like a piece of
like beef jerky?
Yeah.
Before it became jerky.
You know what you look like? You look like the kind of guy I knew exactly where you were January 6th.
Yeah, I was at work like an adult.
Let's get going.
All right. So, like we said, racing didn't really happen this week. Everything was a mess. So, with rain being predicted in Indianapolis, Kyle Larson's Indy 500 and Coke 600 double attempt was threatened early in the week. Throughout the week, we heard that NASCAR and the Coke 600 would be his priority. Sunday morning, reports became coming out from Jeff Gluck and others that Kyle would be staying for the Indy 500 regardless of what happened. Eventually, this ended up being the decision made, and Kyle would miss the start of the Coke 600. What are your thoughts on this one?
What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts? I had a rough couple days, to be honest, but I've had time to sleep on a little bit, and
thankfully
my thoughts really haven't changed a whole lot. But like, my biggest thing was, like you typed out there, was throughout the whole week he announced, no, the Coke 600 is my priority. If there's a chance to race, there's rain at Indy, I'm leaving. I'm going to run NASCAR, which in my opinion would have been the right move, because I don't know. Exactly, your job. And I was raised with, like, you're loyal to your job. Like, you put your job ahead of other things and all that. But I also see that his employer is basically Hendricks. Like, NASCAR isn't really Kyle Larson's employer per se. So to me, he was like, and Hendrick wanted him there, which also leads me to a bigger issue. Is like, why would Hendrick be okay with having your guy miss out on being the top? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I answer that for you? Why Hendrick's okay with
it? No. You can't answer that.
Okay.
No, but like, that's my issue. Is like, you're the top guy in the playoffs right now. Like, you got the top seed, and you were willing to give that up for an expedition race for yourself. Like, I mean, I know it was a big race, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, that is not what's paying your bills. Like, NASCAR is like their bread and butter when it all comes down to it. And I feel like that should be their priority. But that also brings it on NASCAR is why was NASCAR okay with their top driver basically missing out on the Coke 600? Donnie
Can I
wants to
answer
answer
that
it
one?
again. All right, answer it.
All right, they're all right with it because it's Hendrick. Hendrick has always gotten
Okay, but
preferred treatment. They always, like, NASCAR will do whatever they can for them. And NASCAR has already rigged the system that they created. And I've already thrown it out the door years ago for Hendrick.
all right,
Before we go down that rabbit hole, let me say this: we haven't heard yet that he has a waiver for sure.
okay, but he's gonna get the
He
waiver.
does. Come on.
I believe he does too.
They
But
have
we don't
to
know that
give
for
it
sure.
to him. They have
They
to.
have to. Oh
They
yeah,
have-
100%.
Yeah.
We all
There's
know
no way they can't.
that's gonna happen. But all right, so that's not right in my opinion. Like NASCAR shouldn't necessarily be playing favorites, but they obviously do. But so at what I can figure out, NASCAR is okay with Kyle Larson not being at the 600, which I
Because
mean,
they already sold tickets saying that he would be.
exactly.
So
So right
I mean,
or wrong,
who
but
cares if he
that's
shows
the
up
stance
now?
they took. So here's my real issue: is why on earth is Hendrick okay with their top driver, basically, like like what him, like he's up there
Their top driver.
to give up
Yep.
the points lead for nothing, basically. Like I understand it's money, yes, but that's which again, there's a problem with the system. So why, like the system needs to be changed, in my opinion, back to the old ways where points actually meant something, where Kyle Larson couldn't afford to miss the 600 this weekend. Like that's like in my opinion, like the whole system of the playoffs need to be rearranged. If you can take your driver and just be like, we don't care that
we have a system in place for this. There is a system in place. The system says you need to run every single race of the season to be eligible for the playoffs. When we made this new system, that's what we put in place. You needed a waiver if you're going to miss time. Here's where we went. First person to get the waiver, Kyle Busch, 2015, injured in a car crash, no safer barrier, crashed into it, broke his leg. Broke it on track. There should have been a safe barrier. It shouldn't have happened. Obviously, you have to give him a waiver. You know what I mean?
In an Xfinity race. That one.
So then we go. Yeah. So then NASCAR sanction.
Yeah.
So then we go to COVID. We have a worldwide pandemic. Anybody who gets COVID and has to miss time will get a waiver. I mean, I just think that makes complete total sense.
Enough. Yeah.
Right.
Kurt Busch gets a concussion again, hurt in the car. Drivers were already complaining on this issue. Alex Bowman dealt with this issue. You're a Bowman fan, you know that.
Yep.
So again, applied for a little waiver. I assume he would have got it. 2311 ended up pulling the request for it because they realized Kurt wasn't going to make it back in time. And then this is where it all falls apart. Chase Elliott skiing. Yeah, we'll give you a waiver. Like the guy breaks his leg. Like nothing to do with NASCAR, out on his own time. But, oh, yeah, it's Chase Elliott. It's Hendrick. Sure, we'll give you a waiver. Alex Bowman breaks his back out racing the car. Nothing to do with NASCAR. Yeah, no, we'll give you a waiver because we have to because Chase Elliott broke his leg skiing. I mean, like, it's just right there. You screwed your system. So you said the rules are different.
Even worse than that, they gave one for Chase for being suspended, did they not?
That's my
in my opinion, is the worst one of them all. Like, how do you suspend a guy?
Like, how do you not get a waiver? Like, that's the thing. Like, Kyle Larson, like, I guarantee you, Hendrick said, yeah, fund this, sponsor us. We will run Indy no matter what. We'll have to tell our bosses at NASCAR that we're not, but we're going to run there. Don't worry about it. We're guaranteed a waiver because they can't say no because they have a history of already moving the goalposts for us. Like, so yeah, tell NASCAR what they want to hear. And then at the last minute, oh no, I think we're actually going to stay. And we know you won't do anything about it because you can't, because we've already made you screw your system over and go back on your word and make this whole system look like a joke. So NASCAR's stuck holding the bag because they're complete idiots with how this has already played out in Hendrick's favor.
Well, I think they had to have talks with NASCAR. I don't think you just say we're not coming without talking to NASCAR first. Like, there had to be something like, hey, we're going to, like, maybe not, but in my opinion, that's just absolutely stupid if you didn't have conversation with someone at the top.
Like, and here's the thing. Like, I don't want people to think I'm like Kyle. Like, if Kyle Larson showed up, got in the car, the race started when it did, and you know what I mean? Like, it went long, or he, like, that's understandable because NASCAR they promoted this, they made big off this, it brought lots of eyes to NASCAR that might not have, come over. But you can't just once you realize hey, this isn't going to be a double and this isn't going to work out, that's when NASCAR's got to be no, sorry,
and they knew it all week.
Was that Larson outside your house, Donnie?
Yeah, right. Heard that, eh?
But all week it was coming, rain was coming, they knew it. So
Chase Elliott fans drowning me out.
It just blows my mind. But again, I blame the system because I can't think of one other sport where they're oh no, it's okay for us to give up valuable points in the playoffs, and we're just 15 regular season points. We've seen how important that was for Truex last year. How can you just be and he still might get it, but I mean, how can you be no, that doesn't really matter to us? So in my mind, that just means the whole system needs a remake of the playoffs, how you crown the champion.
But it doesn't, because then NASCAR will just what it needs is NASCAR to stick to the rules that they put in place and keep it fair amongst every team and all 36
I get that,
drivers.
but Hendrick shouldn't want to miss a race. That's what I get.
But I'm telling you, changing the system's not going to do anything because NASCAR is just going to do this again with the new system.
Chances are, but there needs to be something on all sides that they got. I don't know, man. Could you see Kobe Bryant?
System that would work.
Could you see Kobe Bryant missing out on important games, the biggest games of his career because I got this other thing going on over here. It's just
what really needs to happen in this situation, in my opinion, is I think the other teams have to say, listen, this is unacceptable. They probably should have done it when Chase Elliott got his injury, but I think everyone knows there's a ratings drop when Chase Elliott's not running. We saw it last year. And so I think the teams were willing to accept that, but they should not be willing to accept Kyle Larson getting a waiver to run in a different series. Especially since our ratings for last night are going to suck.
Oh,
because we didn't even see a full race.
They have to accept it though, because they were part of if you didn't call them on it then, you don't get to cause a fuss now.
NASCAR should have right from day one. We are okay with doing this unless it comes down to what for some reason Indy is canceled or something, and then he's got to be back. That would have solved everything in my opinion. But
I understand why NASCAR had the compassion they had with Chase Elliott's situation and the Bowman situation. I'm not saying it was right, but I understand how, they looked at it as, guy was living his life, accidents happen. I get that. I don't think it's right. No, hang on. I don't think it's right. I think both of those guys should have probably not been waiver eligible. However, when you go and compete on the same day, when you choose the alternate to your racing series, the competitor, and you give it priority, it's not like we were in the cars and all of a sudden there was a red flag and he couldn't drive to the pits because the cars were stopped on track and he wasn't allowed to move. And that's, what I mean? If that had happened, would have been one thing. He made the choice to get in the car knowing rain was coming, or knowing that the race had already been delayed and he was not going to make Charlotte. He and Hendrick. And I think what it really boils down to is somebody that was a part of that team, namely Rick Hendrick or Jeff Gordon or another decision maker.
Yeah, I don't believe it was Kyle Larson who made that call.
I don't 100% believe
Larson doesn't make these calls.
No,
no. I believe it was one of them that wanted an Indy 500 trophy.
Yeah.
I don't think Jeff has the authority to overstep Rick Hendrick in that, but he was raised in Indianapolis after they moved there from California when he was 8 or 10 or something like that.
I don't think Rick and Jeff are ever far off the same page anyway.
I don't think so either. So my assumption is that they wanted to have an Indy 500 trophy. It is still to this day probably considered the most prestigious race in North America for sure, and quite possibly the world. There's definitely some major stages that are competing with that. 3 of them seem to compete on the one day. I don't know why we have one big weekend of Monaco, which is F1's shining moment, Charlotte, which is one of our crown jewels, and then of course Indy, which is Indy's top. I don't understand that necessarily, but traditions are traditions, and I think that's what it came down to. I don't think it was necessarily money. Billionaires don't need more money. And hear me out. winning the Indy 500 doesn't change any of their lives other than the bragging rights. And I think when you're a billionaire, it comes down to bragging rights more often than money.
There's also McLaren to think of too, though. They were involved in that whole decision, I feel, at some point. But
yeah,
like Zach Brown was there. Like that's a pretty
where
big deal. Zach Brown was
the
there.
backroom
Like,
deals are.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
Right.
we're going to run this no matter what, but we got to save face. So don't worry when we say 600's our priority. Hendrick had no plans on ever.
Maybe Hendrick's trying to open a McLaren dealership. You never know.
Yeah, like
anyway,
I don't know. I had a lot of problems with everything that happened. Like, just I don't think anything was handled right.
Credibility from the sport.
Well,
and like I said, like
I do
if
think
Larson doesn't get a waiver, that is absolute garbage. Like it's just ridiculous.
If
like you have to give it, you have to give it to him. Like you've set the precedent. Like you can't cash in on this guy. Like it's like finding Ricky $75,000 and you're going to play that and make, all your money back and revenue just playing that one clip for the next 20 years. But like you've made your money promoting Larson and doing this and then like now if you're going to say no, he can't, even though we've let our favorite boy, break his leg skiing and wreck a guy under caution, and like NASCAR's already showed there's nothing you can do to not get a waiver. You can hurt yourself out of work and you get a waiver, or you can get suspended and play and get a waiver. Like, it's a joke, but unfortunately, that's why people don't watch the sport, and a lot of people have tuned out, because NASCAR's credibility is constantly questioned, and they just constantly drop the ball.
I will say the suspension one to me is still the most egregious thing they've ever done. To suspend the guy and then give him his waiver. I mean,
what was first? Because like that's the one to me.
The skiing accident
broke. And right then, that's where they should have just said, "Hey, you guys need to make smarter choices during your season, because do things that are going to keep you in your car. Like this is why you don't go skiing."
I think that's where the downfall began, but I don't think that's the low point. I think
like even that I can understand even more
because his actions are detrimental.
But you can't, like, because then all someone has to do is like, I hurt my shoulder snowboarding, but I'm going to try and go do something. Like
I know, but like let's say you have a doctor's note, like you got to have some
doctor's note.
No, but like
school?
I mean, like
no,
I can understand being injured more than I can understand suspension. Like
so this opens the door now. I'm struggling mentally. Can I take the next 16 weeks off and then come back when the season favors me, and I'm well rested while these guys have been?
Can we?
You shouldn't be able to. No, and I mean, like I'm all for mental health advocacy and stuff like that, but like I'm surprised no one has tried that yet. I'm surprised no
fans will find anything to try and get him into the playoffs.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to like draw a line. Like no, like if it isn't on track related, like injury, then like
it was a disaster. Like right from the get, like the whole day was just a disaster.
The fact it opens up this conversation in and of itself would indicate that it's like a horrible situation.
It's just bad look for everybody, in my opinion. I will say I have changed my stance of Kyle actually coming back to Charlotte. Like I know I said yesterday that I don't even know why he's coming back. Like it doesn't mean anything. No, it does mean a little bit now that I think of it. Like, for his fans and stuff, like it was cool. He did make the effort to get back to Charlotte and attempt to get in the car, even though it didn't mean nothing.
But leave the rain in Indy.
Well, yeah, that would have been nice, but I think we talk about that in a bit.
Oh, do we? Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
All right.
No, you're right though.
I thought, it actually shows that's pretty big of him to do, like to like the guy must have been wiped out after a race to jump in I don't know.
And actually, he tweeted out today too. I don't know if you.
I read that tweet.
Yeah, it was quite a tweet.
I haven't seen it.
About how devastated he was with how the weekend went, and not necessarily the result, but the fact that he wasn't able to basically be there for his fans in both situations, type thing. Man.
Yeah, it was pretty good tweet. So, all right.
And like that's the thing. I do want to say this, like. All the respect for Kyle Larson. The guy's a wheelman. He's great for his sport. He loves his fans. He shows up for his fans. Like, I'm not saying any of this against Kyle Larson. Like, I know it wasn't Larson throwing a tantrum and saying, I'm the talent, I'm not leaving. Like, I don't think any of us have that
No.
mindset that this is on Larson.
No, it was
All right.
All right. So the guy driving Larson's car, Justin Allgaier, was tapped to fill in for him once the decision was made to stay in Indy. During stage 1, he would go one lap down to both Ty Gibbs and William Byron before passing them back to stay in the lead lap, and Evan went wild. But while his day started off in a less than stellar fashion, he rebounded, provided feedback to the team, and ended the race in 13th. As a veteran of the Xfinity Series, is Allgaier someone that could feasibly deserve a Cup Series ride? Evan, what do you think, bud?
First of all, I didn't go wild. I
Well,
simply had a debate with you guys about why it was even being covered. It's rare that we see someone do that nowadays, especially someone who just jumped into a car that's not theirs. However,
besides Josh Berry, who was an incredible answer.
Yes, but not his first week.
All right, so does Allgaier just deserve
You
a
can't
Cup
jump
ride
into
or
someone
what?
else's car and have it ready for you in less than 12 hours notice.
Go ahead. Does
Does
Allgaier
Allgaier deserve a chance in a Cup Series ride?
So I will say theoretically, maybe he could do it and do a good job. I don't see a seat where it's even feasible to discuss. I think there's too much younger talent already coming up through the pipeline for a guy that already had a shot at it. I could see him maybe getting like some part-time stuff with colleague or something like that if that continues to be the trend that they go. But I don't think he'll ever be a full-time Cup Series guy at this point. I forget who he used to drive with, if it was BK Racing or Tommy Baldwin Racing or someone of that nature. Unfortunately, didn't impress enough at that point to get a Cup Series ride, or at least not to get the funding for a Cup Series ride, however you want to term that. Which is unfortunate because he did put on a really good race last night. Obviously gave good feedback to the team on what the car needed. Went from going a lap down at first stage to finishing 13th, which although isn't fantastic, he was marching forward. And I think it would have been really interesting to see if the feedback he gave to the team suited Kyle well when he got in the car. Especially since Kyle would have had to restart at the back of the pack again.
Yeah. It was interesting. Do you see? He said like when Kyle gets here, he's going to take this car right to the front. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. He also said that if Kyle gets here and wins this race
at the front.
What's that? Sorry.
Kyle's hauler must have been at the front.
Why?
Well, Kyle would have had to jump in his car and drove it up to the hauler because NASCAR called the race.
Yeah. Well. Again, talk about that in a bit.
But he also said that if Kyle gets here and wins this race, I plan to be in victory lane with him and celebrating, which I totally think he would have deserved.
Yeah.
Well,
it'll be his name on the win sheet. So
yeah, I know.
And all he wanted was a motorhome spot the next year.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he said that.
So basically, with Allgaier,
do Xfinity guys not get motorhome spots?
I don't know. That's just what I seen him quoted as saying. So
What?
I don't know.
Now I've got to look into that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No worries. So to answer your question, Corey, I'm going to say no. He doesn't deserve a Cup ride. Like, he has 82 races in Cup and one top 10, which came last night. Was it?
No, he's 13th last night.
Oh yeah, so
So
it
not
wasn't.
even.
So he's one top 10 and 82 races. So
Actually,
here's the thing with Allgaier. He's 37 years old. He's won the 2018 regular season championship in Xfinity. He has the most all-time top 10s in Xfinity. He was the 09 Rookie of the Year. He's the most popular driver 2019, 2020, 2021, last year. 24 wins, 267 top 10s. He's a runner-up. 2020, he was the runner-up last year in the championship. Like, there's no reason to bring this guy up to Cup to, ride at the back of the pack for 5 years. Like, these are the kind of guys that Xfinity needs. Like, he's going to make talent better. And, like, the kid, like, it's not the kid, the 37-year-old man has exceptional talent, but it's best used in Xfinity. That's where he's going to shine. He's never going to be a Cup guy that would shine. So, like, I think it'd be a disservice to him, and it'd be a disservice to anybody in the lower series that wouldn't have the chance to race against him. Because it's guys like that that's going to make the next generation that much more better, because they're going to have better competition to race against. So that's where I stand on that.
Well said. Anything else to add, Evan?
No, that was good points. 100%. He reminds me a lot of like an Elliott Sadler, like at the end of his career when he went down to Xfinity and just kind of elevated that series a bit.
Yeah, and I feel like there's probably some guys in Cup that really could go down and do that, but
that's probably a longer list.
Yeah.
You think Harrison Burton could go down and improve?
No, we are not talking about Harrison Burton. So,
Maybe
let's talk about Tyler Reddick. He's forced to serve a drive-through penalty at the beginning of the race due to an underwing adjustment. He would remain on the lead lap and end up rebounding to finish 4th. During the second stage of the race, while racing with Ty Gibbs, he would be passed on the inside by William Byron, who drove through the grass, nearly making contact with Reddick on his way through. Was the move by William Byron overly aggressive or completely fair?
I'm still not convinced he didn't make contact.
And
but
it was some kind of close, but
right? No, but I'd say completely fair. I mean, aggressive, yes, but like the moment called for it. Like it wasn't, we're not one lap in and doing stupid stuff. Like it was a racing move. Where I was like, man, what an idiot was. I thought he got into Reddick, and Byron has been performing this way this year. Like I've been calling him out week after week, it feels. So like my initial reaction was like, you idiot. But looking at it, even if he did touch him, it wasn't like it was a racing move.
Yeah, it wasn't like a deliberate, like
you didn't punt him out of the way or exactly. Like so as much as I hate to say it now, it was fair racing on Byron and probably the highlight of the night, which goes to tell you what kind of
there wasn't many highlights.
There wasn't, no.
The next most exciting thing was Denny Hamlin and Buescher talking on pit road. Like,
well, I think Blaney hitting the wall had some excitement.
I see that quite often, it seems. Tune in any Daytona race, you'll see that.
Felt bad for Gregson too, actually. But I just wanted to hear Donnie say that it was a clean move on the podcast. No, it definitely was probably the most exciting moment. It was great. We got to hear Mike Joy talk about the pass in the grass that wasn't a pass in the grass, and again, and now we actually have a pass in the grass that was a pass in the grass.
Oh man,
it was a whole conundrum, but I think it was totally fair. I don't think it's right to ask a guy to take that momentum and go nowhere with it. If Reddick had have been on the white line and there was nowhere to go and you had to put all 4 wheels in the grass, that's a different situation. That's reckless and dumb. But I think he did what he had to do, and I think he performed the move clean. I think the star in that moment was actually probably Reddick's spotter. I don't even know who it is, but obviously Reddick heard that Byron was going low, and that's why he moved high, right? Because he I don't think he could have seen that without knowing that. So kudos to those guys too. But no, the move was totally fair. And where did Byron end up? Second?
Yep, I think so.
Paid off in the long run for that guy too. He was fast all night, but still paid off in that moment.
All right, so as Kyle Larson ascended to the track with his helicopter ride, I guess he wasn't driving the helicopter, the rain began to fall and the yellow flag was put out. The race would be delayed with Christopher Bell in the lead, and reports were that we would attempt to dry the track and proceed with the event once the track was dry, barring any additional rain. After a nearly 2-hour rain delay, NASCAR made the decision to end the race early, having passed the halfway mark. Did NASCAR make the right call? No, they did not.
That was a garbage call to make. Like 75% of the track was dry. You make people sit around for 2 hours like, yeah, we're going green. We're going to do this. Yeah, it's a long weekend in the States. Nobody has work the next day. Everyone's at the track. It's our longest race of the season. And you literally just cut it in half and made people sit in the rain for 2 hours. And then, I'm not even overly pumped that Christopher Bell won. Like, it just, because the fans lost that much more. Like, it was just horrible luck, this whole week for NASCAR, really.
He said it was the only time he's ever won a rain-delayed race without it raining. when he won it.
That's fair. Well, the other thing is, too, had they made the call within, 15 minutes or so, we wouldn't – everyone had kind of checked out, right? The excitement of the moment was gone. We waited 2 hours thinking, we're going to get to see more racing. It's going to
They
be a
dry it in
completely
the
green
track,
track with very little rubber on it anymore. It's going to be way cooler than it would have been when the night ended, so the handling's going to be different. There was so many opportunities.
Larson's getting in a car now,
right, and starting
you know
at the
what I
back.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Lots of stuff to happen.
And on top of that, we could have showed Indy up when they had an 8:15 curfew to shut the race down, essentially, in order to get people home. Where we could have said there is no noise ordinance here, and we can run.
But but my thing is, if this was their plan, like they said later, they didn't want to run after 2 a.m. or whatever it was. Tell that before the race starts, knowing that rain could be coming. So like, let people know, hey, there's a chance we might not finish this race. We got to be done by this time. Don't let everyone sit there like a bunch of idiots thinking like, oh, we're going to get racing again. Yeah, exactly. Like getting excited again. Like, oh, we can't wait.
75% there.
Oh man, like what a bad move to just be like, keep everybody in suspense like that and just be like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this because the humidity is too high. We can't get a track dry. Like, no, you can't do that. You got to let people know.
I've never seen a sport be so successful with such horrible people running it. Like the decisions, like.
Have you ever heard of Roger Goodell?
Yeah, there you go. The No Fun League.
But like just easy decisions to make before the race. You see the radar. There's a chance of rain 2 hours away. Be like, all right, we have to have this done by 2 a.m. If we can't get the track dry before then race is over. Yeah. Like
you're totally right.
Like it's just unreal.
And it's not like this is new. It's not like the first time we've seen rain at a race. Right?
Yeah. And like I get we don't control the weather, but like you control how you deal with it, and you dealt with it horribly. Like
Like, what was it like when you were at Daytona and it rained? I forget. You told us this weekend, but
so Sunday they called it like right at 9:30, like in the morning. Like we got there at 9. Like I went and met John Hunter, got an autograph, walked back to the bus, and the race had already been called. We're going to run it Monday. Xfinity's running Monday. Saturday they kept it, trying to find ways to get it in. I mean, they got some practice. They had some cars out on the track. It didn't get called as quickly, but also it's Daytona weekend. So, I mean, there's haulers around, there's stuff to do. People are still excited to be at the track, but I mean,
snacks to get.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a huge difference between when you're already at the track and you've been out and
yeah. And here's the thing too, I seen a couple tweets about it. Crown Jewel, this is one of our big races of the year. What is there, 4 big races to consider, or is it 3?
Yeah.
Okay, you look at golf. Okay, but you look at golf. You think the Masters is going to be called after 54 holes? No. There was no reason why they couldn't have finished that race today, knowing it's one of your biggest races of the year. Just have it the next day. Why not?
That's it. Exactly. Put them in the car. That's another thing.
It's just I get if you want to have that after 50% through with just a regular race, but this is one of your big races of the year. You have to finish that race, in my opinion. It's just.
But that raises a question too. Speaking of crown jewels,
it is.
I don't think we have 4 right now.
So what do you got?
Well, we got Daytona, we got the Coke 600, we've got the Brickyard. Now that we've got it back, it wasn't for the last few years. But the Brickyard has always been one of the crown jewels, right? Yeah. We don't have the Southern 500 anymore. Although this week, actually, you know what? Is it back on Labor Day this year? That second Darlington race?
Isn't Daga the one of them? I always thought Yellowwood was considered.
No. It was always the Southern 500, Daytona 500, World 600, which is now the Coke 600, and the Brickyard since 94. Yeah. A lot of people also put the 500 lap night race at Bristol on it, but that has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit in the sense that it's not the sellout race that it once was either. I just feel like the identity of those 4 crown jewels is not what it used to be. I think it's only the Daytona 500 and Coke 600 that really have the level of prestige to them that we once had.
But why don't they make it that prestige again? It's not hard to hype up an event. Look how much hype there was about Larson running 2 races,
running the 1 1/4.
Yeah,
so does Labor Day now, Southern 500.
Actually, no, he ended up just running the 1. It wasn't even the 1 1/4. We were making jokes that he would get back for the end. Yeah, but no, he literally just ran the 1. Yeah, no.
Anyways,
pathetic.
It is
just bad management.
A little demoralizing, actually, at times. Eh?
Yeah.
How are you going?
It just feels. Sorry.
No, I was just like, how are you going to grow your sport? Like, you're trying desperately to do if you're just making bonehead calls like this.
The
Like,
crazy part
right.
is, if you look at the first 6 races of the year, it was, I think it was 6, up until that race at Richmond that kind of turned into a joke. The season started off absolutely
we've had
awesome.
great racing, like great
Awesome.
racing.
Yeah. Like Daytona was great. Atlanta was fantastic. Where was right after that? Las Vegas was a really
I
good
think
race.
Las Vegas, yeah, it
Bristol?
was even good. Like, it was
Bristol was the best race of the season. You know,
Kansas was awesome.
Kansas was great, which it always is lately. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you can't blame the car or like anything except literally just the management of NASCAR right now. Like, it's just
yeah, because even the car can be fixed if they would just fix it.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying what they want to see. Worst case scenario, at least give them what they want to see, and then when it doesn't work out, say it didn't work.
exactly.
But I mean, what are we doing? Anyway, we talk about that topic every week. I'm sorry.
just
Fix short track racing.
just frustrating. Like,
Make
Anyways.
short track great again.
all right, so Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher, and John Hunter Nemechek faced pit road issues all night due to their pit box locations in relation to each other. Each driver would have to pit ahead of the other, resulting in a difficult time leaving pit road. As the race continued and the frustration began to grow as the attempts to remedy the problem continued to fail. During the rain delay, we saw that they were discussing the issue but never got to see if there was a solution that was reached. What would your suggestion have been? Evan?
Qualify better.
100%.
Better. What was the issue? Like, I mean, they're narrow pit boxes, but like, aren't guys pitting in front of each other all the time? Or like,
Yeah, but typically, so like Denny was running at the front of the pack, but he was the third of those 3. So he would pit. Well, then Buescher was typically running ahead of Nemechek, and he was pitting right ahead of Denny. So he would still be angled when he got into his box because he was trying to miss the front of Denny's team. And then Nemechek was pitting behind or ahead of Buescher, but running behind him. So it kind of compound the problem. So every time Denny and Chris went to leave, they had to back up and then go, right, in order to have the space. And that was really all the issue was. And what it really came down to is it was poor pit stop selection.
but like, wouldn't that happen all the time? Like, to not like
it does, but typically throughout the day it pans out so that, you know, like a lot of times, like the top tier guys tend to pick spots that aren't right next to someone who's running better than them. So as the day progresses and cars go a lap down, well, they pit the whole next lap, right? They don't pit on the same lap as the lead lap cars, which leaves a lot of spots open. Not to mention,
They could have tried pitting back. Like Denny moved his marker back, so they're not like, you know what I mean? Like there's things you can try and do, but it's one of those things. Like Denny was already heated, and then Buescher's getting mad at John Hunter for the reason Denny's getting mad at Buescher. Like it's just and yeah.
Every time they pit, they lose track position, have to fight back through it again too, right? Like it's a compounding problem. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So it is what it is. I don't really know that there's a better solution other than to pick a better spot. Buescher was the last pit stop available, and because he wrecked in practice and didn't get to qualify, he had to just take what was left. He didn't have a choice, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
It just goes to show how important qualifying is.
Yeah.
Like at least in our sport, it doesn't dictate who wins normally.
Yeah.
But
it definitely dictates who has an advantage at certain positions, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Right on. So it was nobody's fault. It was just
I mean, everyone was doing what they could do.
Just tempers flaring and
okay.
Like Denny's mad because he expects more from Buescher and probably more respect, and Buescher's mad because he's stuck behind John Hunter, and John Hunter's still trying to find his footing in the sport, like up and cup. And I mean, I'm not like I like John Hunter, but I'm not going to defend him. Like he's putting his car where it shouldn't be sometimes, and like I don't think there's a whole lot more he could have done differently. Like you got to learn and figure these things out, and unfortunately, this is how you're doing it.
Donnie would defend him if he hadn't have taken Toyota out of Talladega.
Dega's still got, or Toyota's still won Dega, so it wasn't a horrible day. Speaking of which, have we talked about winners yet?
What's that?
Have we talked about the winner yet?
Who, Christopher Bell?
Bell?
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to mention him. I don't know anything you have to say.
No,
Yeah.
you're right.
Once again, Toyota's closing the distance. I said they would be most wins in the regular season. Ford, again, did not show up. I don't think they're as great as what you and Evan have said,
Actually,
Korey.
I'm pretty sure Brad K finished second, not William Byron. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Oh, are we?
So
So I mean, he was right there, but
yeah. So RFK as a whole has
RFK
been doing
is
pretty
doing well.
good, but I don't think that speaks for the whole Ford program that you guys think is dominating the season. But hey, yep.
I don't know,
Christopher
man.
Bell
We got
the
Rick Bear
win.
Racing running 20th. I can't say that Ford's running poorly.
And honestly, I can't say, but like I can't say this is a fair representation too.
Yeah,
of
this
where
kind of got an
guys were
asterisk on it, in
running.
my opinion.
Like Chris Buescher's lower on that list than what he looked like last night. Austin Dillon's higher up on the list. Like it's just, I
What?
don't think Allgaier was what?
You think Austin Dillon would have finished higher?
No, I said
No.
Austin Dillon was running up higher on the list than where he should have been.
Oh,
He had a 33rd place car all night.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I said Buescher is running down on the list than where he should have been. Like, I think Buescher had a top 15 car and he's, down in the 20s. Like, I'm saying if this thing would have ran or, at least restarted, it's going to look a lot different and guys would have balanced out. Like, I don't think Allgaier runs this race and finishes in 12th place.
Right.
But
That's fair.
All right.
What else you got, Co?
I think that's it, isn't it? I thought this was your segment, your question to yourself, but I guess not. Indy racing versus NASCAR. What do you think is more enjoyable based on the limited viewing you got to see this weekend? Well, this is going to be a very short question.
I would say hands down, if that was the only race I ever see of Indy, NASCAR is the
never want to see
superior.
another one.
yeah, I realized this week I'm not a motorsports fan. I'm a NASCAR fan.
100%.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I
that
like
was-
short
like,
track
yeah.
stuff too. Like local short track stuff is always fun
Yeah.
and entertaining to go to. But like I'm a stock car racing fan, I guess is maybe
Yeah,
a better way to word that for me.
exactly.
and supposedly it was an exciting race. Like I was kind of paying attention to it all along, and like there was a last lap pass, I guess, but he passed them.
On the outside too.
Yeah, ooh, but like it was.
I
Still
mean, it
single
wasn't in the
file.
grass, so I don't think it was
Yeah.
that great.
To me, watching guys go around an oval single file for 200 laps is not exciting racing, but I mean,
Which is funny because that's what your
Each
brother
one.
and my sister think we do on a weekly basis.
yeah, but
And not only that, but I mean, for every single Honda just to be blowing up lap after lap, it's
Right.
like, what are
I
we
wish
doing?
Toyota would do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, they just keep winning.
If NASCAR
Yeah.
would let loose the reins a little bit, they might. You never know.
The rain's
like, if
still
we-
there, and we still win.
No, but if NASCAR would let the teams push the envelope on what they were able to do with the engines to build horsepower and stuff, we would probably see more mechanical failures. But they're in such a tight box that they're not even close to being pushed hard.
Yeah.
The fact we're seeing multiple races off the same engines is just something that, like in the 90s and early 2000s, would just be so mind-boggling. Like, wouldn't even be considered. But, well,
Sound
actually,
like the old guard now.
yeah.
Right.
Racing died with Dale.
I'm telling you, man, I want to see that point system back. How it's just after this
Yeah.
weekend. I really think it's.
I will
I'm
say,
starting to get there.
I don't necessarily mind like our points layout as far as like 40 to win, things like that. Like I don't mind that. It makes it look like it's a closer gap and things like that.
But it
It's
is
fair.
close. Like back in, I think they changed it because it was 2-1 dominant, like one car dominant, basically. Or am I wrong with that? Like, I know they want to.
Yeah, basically 48 car.
Yeah, like they were just winning everything. So like, well, we got to change this. Maybe I'm wrong.
can't
with
win
thinking
nothing.
that.
So they changed it. They changed it first because Matt Kenseth won the championship and only won one race.
Okay.
And they wanted to have a playoff format. That was back in 2003, which I think was Johnson's rookie year. So he can't take credit for that initial change. But when we got to the playoff era, he did, 5 in a row? And then he won again in 13 and 16, I think. And after those, they changed the format twice.
But like, it's not like F1 where it's just dominated by one. Like this car, you can't dominate like
Yeah.
F1 does. So I really think if just with points, you'd have interesting racing right to the end. And, it's just
And
not-
I will say I didn't mind the playoff era as far as like, okay, these 12 guys are eligible. We reset the points for the last 10.
Is that how they did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't mind that. That was actually pretty decent, you know, and you could still have a bad race and it wasn't going to completely end your season necessarily. That was pretty good too. But I will say, as much as the playoffs bring excitement, I do think they take a bit of the legitimacy away from the champion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you got to have your guys want to be there. Like, to me, it showed Kyle Larson that, like, Kendrick didn't care if they were there or not this weekend. And
I think this weekend pinpointed a major flaw in the system.
Oh, huge flaw.
And that flaw may very well be the waiver system as opposed to the playoff system. Like Donnie said, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like, it's 100%. Like,
It's a lot
if you knew that, like, Chase Elliott, like, I hurt myself in a tragic accident and now I don't get to run the playoffs. Kyle Larson's not going to be sitting there thinking, oh, well, I can probably miss my job and they'll give me an exemption. Yeah. Like, you can wreck a guy under caution and, but we're going to sit you out, but you can still come back and race in the playoffs. Like, there's nothing we can do to not, like, basically it's like God's grace. There's nothing we can do to outrun it. And that's what NASCAR is basically saying. So we love our children so much. Does not matter what you do. You always have a spot in our playoff format.
Preach, brother.
Took Donnie to church yesterday, and this is what we get.
Turned him into a saint.
I will say this too. What was I gonna say?
Man. Well, that was a great segue into our next segment.
Because we're going to skip the caution break altogether.
We're not doing that.
Devotions with Don, our newest segment.
It's been it was a long weekend, and we already played enough games this weekend and fought over the rules of those enough that I think we're just going to skip the caution break segment this week, and I will have something really good for us next week, hopefully.
This is how Marilee started her demise. She just started skipping her segments, and then now look.
Oh, this is not the first time we skipped it this year. I figured we would actually have a lot to talk about in your segment, and we did. So
fair enough.
I remember what I was going to say. When it comes to waivers, I do believe there are exceptions where it's okay to have a waiver for something that occurs outside the track. I don't think we should expect a driver to show up if a parent or a child or something like that has passed away.
Perfect.
I do think
put it in black and white. Then write down how you can get a waiver.
Sure, but I mean, there will always be situations that arise where it's acceptable that you haven't considered, right? I think it'd be very unfortunate to have a child pass away. For 100%. Sure.
But we're talking about a child passing away in extreme winter sports. Like, if your child passed away doing extreme winter sports, yes, sign the waiver. But if you're out blowing off steam and you can't snowboard and you break your leg, like, guess what, pal? You made a dumb decision, and you're going to find out what that means.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we should be asking these guys to have zero life outside of the track.
No, but I mean, you got to do risk management.
Sure.
Like, I'm not telling you to sit at home and bubble wrap yourself, but you better be good at snowboarding if that's what you're going to choose to do.
Right, but like, what happens if a guy has a car accident just driving down the road?
Unfortunate.
I don't know.
It is, but I mean, like,
I think I'm a little more lenient than you. I think.
Yeah, you 100% are. But like, I'm like, this is the biggest, stage in the world for sports. Like, LeBron James can get in a car accident on the way to a Lakers game. We don't postpone it because he got in an accident.
Right, but the team doesn't lose their right to the championship because of it.
Well, they do if they can't win. Like,
well, they can't win with them either.
We can't.
So, I mean, it's no big deal.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, like, no, like, you can't argue car sports or like motorsports with ball sports. Like, there's always going to be right. No, like, you can't just.
So, like,
it's unfortunate.
I will say this: I don't think Alex Bowman should have got a waiver last year.
I will say
for racing in another.
He should have because of Chase.
Yeah,
like, that's what sucks is that precedent was set.
Right, but if that precedent's not set, I don't think racing in another series should earn you a waiver. Okay.
Yeah,
that's kind of my belief, especially during our own season. Like, if it's in the off season and it carries over, that may be a different thing. But
here's the thing: you're like, these guys should be able to have a life. Like, Alex Bowman's life is racing, and his own boss won't let him do it now.
Actually, that's
You know
not
what I
the
mean?
case. Okay, apparently,
I thought that next season Rick stepped in
no.
and said,
How
If
would
you
you
had-
let
well,
how would
if
you
I
let
hadn't
Kyle
we'll
have
talk
do
about that
everything?
off.
If I hadn't have deleted that interview, he cleared everything up in that interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's
But
talk
anyway.
about picks. We
Okay,
already
let's
beaten that dead horse for.
let's go to before the
All
green,
right.
Donnie. Your segment.
Yep. All right. So we are headed off to Gateway. Mostly ran here Xfinity back in 97 and 2010. So guys running this weekend that have won there: Martin Truex Jr. won in 04, Kyle Busch in 09, Brad K won in 2010. We've only run this race the past 2 years in Cup, with Joey winning in 22 and Kyle Busch winning in 23. So out of the three guys that have won here, Martin Truex averages 5.5 for a finish, Kyle Busch 1.5 average finish, and Brad K hasn't been able to cash in on his previous luck here and is running 24th. But the way Brad's running right now, I think he might be a safe, or not a safe pick, but a, good dark horse pick, or somebody who's going to run better than what their number. Yeah, Ford dark horse. So yeah, basically that's where we're at. And picks last week, I don't have them right in front of me. So Evan, you won with Chris Buescher. I think you were 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah. Austin Dillon, 28th, was it?
27th.
27th. All right. And who knows where Spin
Little
Twice
Ricky
was.
down in 31st. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't holding my breath too hard for that one.
No.
He was going to do better, but his dad wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, now we're headed to Gateway and make some new picks.
So who got the point
And
there?
you did.
Oh,
8
I
to
mean,
7
I didn't
to
know
5.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to celebrate a rain shortened point, go for it.
I think it's
I
going to
mean,
be a half a point.
Honestly, we all know if this thing went green again, Austin Dillon was driving from the
Austin
back. No
Actually, I
doubt in
will
our
say-
minds.
I will say Austin and Ricky kind of finished close-ish to where they were running. I think Chris Buescher would have finished further ahead. He ran up. He was up to 13th or
pretty good
14th at
for a
one
while,
point.
yeah.
So
Austin Dillon was lucky to make it out of the 30s. He was the only one. Him and
I'm actually a
Christopher
little
Bell, the only
disappointed
ones
it was
happy.
that close because I think Buescher was by far the superior pick.
Right. Oh, like I don't even know if I could have took the point if Dillon finished ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we need to rewrite our own rules so that doesn't ever happen. Yeah, there's got to be a waiver or something we can do.
Right, naturally, yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So
I can just
Evan, you
imagine
get
the
point.
protests for asking for a waiver.
Yeah.
I stubbed my toe before I made the pick. It shouldn't count.
So yeah, you get first pick.
All right. I am going to go a route a little different this week. I am going to take Mr. Daniel Hemrick.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to go with Insanity and make the same pick again. And we're going back to RCR, and I'm going to hope for a different outcome. Here's my thing. I'm going Kyle Busch. I know I've crapped on the guy all year, but if you look at the schedule, I feel like this is his one shot to say, hey, this is where we're good. So RCR is going to throw everything they got at this race, try and keep the streak going. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because I think Kyle Busch and RCR as a whole is running garbage. But like my Joey Logano pick, you got to be good sometime. And yeah, fingers crossed this week.
Kyle Busch being on your list was the reason I didn't take Joey Logano on mine. Like,
What do you mean?
Well, I don't have Kyle Busch available to me, and you did. And I thought about taking Logano, but I figured he'd be up against Busch, and I was like, I don't know. It's one of those places he could just get it. So
Yeah.
All right, it's a good pick.
Oh, we'll see.
I don't know who to take.
Truex does good.
I'm not taking.
Did you already take Truex?
No,
I did.
Oh,
no.
okay.
I'm the only one who has at this point.
I'm going with a guy who ran. Yeah, he's been running pretty. I'm going Justin Haley.
Ooh.
So I just want
Not
to
a
say
big
then,
pick, but
if I do not win this week with Kyle Busch, then have Steve call in on the show. I'd love to talk to him next week because I won't be able to defend them. But if Steve thinks he can, then come on air, bud.
I was worried I wasn't going to get to pick third next week. Like, don't get me wrong. If I win, that's great, right? If you win with Daniel Hemrick, that's great. But if I don't win, I want to pick third. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't know. Haley might.
Where are we going next week?
Actually, I would have to look to be 100% sure.
Is it Sonoma? I think it's Sonoma.
Are we going to a road course in 2 weeks' time? Well, that would be all right. Let's see here. NASCAR schedule. I don't know why it always defaults to
Sonoma
series.
It's Toyota.
It is
Sonoma
Sonoma.
350.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And I use my William Byron pick. Did you say you're going to have first pick there?
I want first pick there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, who are you taking there? Mr. Truex, maybe?
I just think you should have done this week. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying I hate Kyle Busch, and I will hate him a whole lot more if he costs me anything but first this week.
Well, listen, guys. I spent enough time with you guys this weekend. Korey, why don't you take us out of here?
All right. Well, you know what you can do. Like us on all social media. Join our little contest we got going on. Don't let Kevin Staubbaum be the winner. I beg of you all. Yeah.
Listen, that's a big contest. That's not a little contest.
Okay, sorry. Our big contest. Chance to win $200 of merchandise.
So I got a buddy wonder, does it have to be like NASCAR official, or can it be off the drivers' websites?
No, it can be off driver websites. Basically, you give us a driver and we will curate a package. And then we'll make sure that it's the kind of stuff you want. Like, obviously, we're not going to get like a small T-shirt for like a guy my size. And, we're not going to get a die cast if you prefer clothing. We're not going to get clothing if you prefer die cast, that kind of thing.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that you like the stuff we pick.
My buddy Frankie is trying his best to win, so it's good.
Oh, Frankie's trying to win?
Yeah. Reached out to me with that question, so thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, everyone, regardless of who wins, though, is probably going to get a Brayton Laster shower curtain. So,
on that note, we will see you next week.
Later, guys.